Hey Soph, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, hello everyone.
How you doing?
Uh, I'm doing okay. A bit tired, but I thought I'd be there, so yeah, here I am.
Very nice. Do we have a time frame? Casey will be joining us as well.
He should be joining. I guess at least he said that to me during my morning. So that was yesterday night for him. So I guess he'll be joining now.
Would you like to start out, Sophia, with telling everybody like what your position is and what you do at Harmony and like your background?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We can start by that. I've been with Harmony for going to 2 years now, I guess. It'll be 2 years in 2 years now because we are already in June. Yeah, it's been 2 years with Harmony with now. I've been with the community before, working with POps, if you guys know about the group. And since then, with Harmony, I've been involved with the DevOps stuff and protocol testing and almost everything now, which is a bit crazy, but it is what it is right now. Yeah.
Thank you. So I noticed that there was talk in the forum about possibly making this like starting out with like a 25% emission reduction to go towards recovery, and then possibly going to the 50% after a few months or so. Is that something that you guys are possibly rewriting or something?
So there's something definitely possible. Okay. Now I don't think we are trying to go in that area first. What I would suggest, if the majority of the validators are not happy with the 50% emission, right? Just reject that coming snapshot. Okay. Um, and and maybe we can have as well later on a talk vote on the actual percentage that everyone wants, right? But my feel is that the talk forum, right, the discussion that we have there doesn't have the entire validator community, so that's why to me having a vote on talk doesn't represent the entirely the validator community in full. Okay. So for now, I think we are still going with 50%. Okay. And if everyone is not happy with that number, right, just put it into the voter, right?
You're right. It's hard to. I know the talk forum's hard to navigate through, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this space is to get more people to, for one, be aware of HIP-30, and two, to hopefully join in on the conversation and get input.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I got a question. So there was kind of a rough estimate of, I guess, if we use 50% of the emissions for recovery, that the recovery would be about 18 months versus if you just left everything as is like 90 months. I guess what what numbers are we basing those on? Is there any way we can actually put that into like tangible, like the value of Harmony 1 and just an actual tangible method so we can understand?
Right.
My question is, if one the price of one continued to decline, wouldn't the recovery take longer?
Right, and that's a possibility because all the simulation that we did, I believe Theo was the one doing it, and the sheet I have seen previously was based on a 2 cent one token pricer. For now, that's what we have. Okay, but yeah, if it goes down, there's definitely a possibility that it goes longer. Yeah.
All right, I follow. So at 2 cents is what it was based off of. So 18 months from the time we start 50% emissions towards recovery. So at 1 cent now, we're looking at potentially 36 months.
You're right. Yeah.
So, what I brought up earlier to the group was, okay, so the price of one continually declines. There has to be some sort of like equilibrium where we're also trying to like onboard projects at the same time to increase traffic so we can actually increase the value of Harmony 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like some type of campaign or anything? I don't know if you know the answer to that, and I'm sorry if I'm asking you the wrong questions or if you're not the
Yeah,
right
no
person.
worries. Yeah, no worries.
But as far as like the core team, is there some like plan and develop to have some type of strategy to, you know, deploy active campaigns to onboard new projects and also do recovery at the same time? It sounds like it's a kind of like we just focus on recovery. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right. So what you just said is the main reason why I'm not sure if you guys have followed the uh, discussion on Discord in regards of Tranquil, right? What you just said is exactly the reason why we're not paying them in full the bad debt. Okay, because we want to keep some cash for exactly what you just mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow. It seems at the moment Trank is the only DeFi project we have on Harmony.
It's not the only DeFi project if you were to look at it, because Sushi Swap is still there, right? It's just that Tranquil, if they have to leave, right, I'll be very sad because they have more than just a DeFi platform, right? They also have a games and other stuff, which is what we would be lacking if they have to leave, right? Because Sushi is not, there's no game, it's Sushi. And all the other DEX aggregator that we have, they're not really a game now. Okay, so they participate into the ecosystem, right, which is very good. But to me, it would be very sad to see Tranquil leaving.
How can we work with them to prevent that?
So to me, I don't have any control on that. And what we are trying to do is to be fair with all the recovery, right, providers. And the hope is that with the emission that we are, even if you ask me right now, right, I even try to go with a higher number, right, so that we can recover from the hack faster, right? But I understand that if we do so, the reward will be much less for everyone, impacting as well the delegator, right? But I think here what we are trying to look at is trying to recover from the hack as fast as we can, right? And still continue to um, develop and have projects onboarded into the chain. Yeah.
Is Trank's main issue not necessarily the depegged assets, but the bad Harmony 1 debt? I don't know if you know the answer to that.
They have both actually, okay, because we have a bad debt, but as well as the depegged asset, okay. And from what I could read previously, right, there was something around the depegged that wasn't up to the market, okay. And with the latest changes, they are going to follow the market price now. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow. I brought up numerous times. I don't know how you guys feel about it. To the Trank team, perhaps I don't know. Maybe we could work on something, but allowing the community to buy the Bad Harmony One debt with pegged assets and
So,
uh, somehow rewarding them with I don't know, maybe Trank or something. There could be some detail.
So something that we have discussed, right, is the current Harmony Foundation delegation rewards that we haven't used at all. I think what we want to do is to work with the validator community as well, to see if they're okay to use those rewards for recovery, and we were thinking about, using that money to also repay that bad debt, So there are lots of thought that has been happening, right? And it's just that they want to recover faster, right? But we are trying to do things at the same time with, you guys may have read, we are trying to have a new decks that will be coming with the latest compound and all. So yeah, those are the things that we have been developing as well on the back end.
Hey Theo, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I can continue on the Trank um, clarity as well, because
Please do.
I've been focused on that, but also was taken off of it. But yeah, Soph's right. Like the main part is the clearing of the bad debt, and when you have it's the main pool is all in one, right? It's the TQ1 that needs to go out. And the only way you can supply it is if you supply one, and then users can pull out. And if you do anything below a one-to-one parity, then now the incentives drop, right? And then your bad debt isn't cleared because you need 100% utilization of the funds that go in. But if you reduce that parity percentage, then you can still potentially have users that are happy enough with the funds that leave. And what we had originally been doing was giving the one-to-one parity. But I think this was something that wasn't fully thought out when we first started doing it, at least from my understanding. And then after a review, we realized, oh, wait a minute, like this is going one-to-one parity, whereas the rest of recovery is like 10%. At one point, it was like 6 cents, probably, right? 6.5. And then it was the analysis of saying, okay, so people who use DeFi and use the lending platform and were affected by the oracles, you have like a disparity, I guess, between those who just held assets versus those who participated in like a lending market. My own personal view is that it shouldn't necessarily be viewed as a parity dispute. It should be more of an ecosystem dispute, in which case we wouldn't look at the one-to-one parity as different from the 10% parity. It would be like I don't know if anybody has mentioned this earlier, but like an investment or like a support of an ecosystem partner. So then we wouldn't be looking at it and being like, oh, why is it different than 10%? We would say, okay, this is what we need to do to have Tranquil continue on Harmony, right? In an ideal world, clearing all their bad debt at 10% with the funds that Soph was saying, we can do that, right? Like the validator funds are about, I mean, on my thing, I have, it says $380,000, but with the one price, I haven't recalculated. But that's still like at a 10% parity, that can easily clear it and possibly go towards additional funding to support the team. But if we continue with the 10%, then there is the possibility that the Tranquil team would move on, right? Like that's the worst case scenario. On top of that, there's the initiatives for Uniswap v3, stablecoin, and then lending and borrowing if there is the need for it, and then a GMX or perpetual exchange. So these initiatives are kind of to build the primitives out on DeFi, because you mentioned earlier, like Tranquil is the only DeFi. There is SushiSwap, but still, like if you think of like Harmony DeFi in your head, like the first name that comes up is Tranquil. And we'll continue to talk to them. We'll continue to have discussions, see if we can find something that we can move forward with together. But the 10%, that decision, I think has been made, and we're not moving from it. So then now it's a question of, with the Tranquil team, is there a way that with the clearing of bad debt, we could potentially give them more? So then now it's clearing bad debt plus support in that sense. But the main initiative would be focusing on all of the different primitives and making sure that there's a use case for users. Because if you have recovery without use cases, then people just get whole again, or not whole again. They'd get like 10% parity and then leave. Right? You need use cases for them to stay, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah. So the bad Harmony.ONE debt on Tranquil Finance. I kind of asked this question to Soph earlier, and maybe I'll try to rephrase it in a better way. Is there any way, like working with the community as far as maybe all the other active DAOs and whatnot, that the community could actually work on purchasing the bad Harmony.ONE debt with pegged assets such as USD dollar stably, and help them get out of that Harmony.ONE bad debt more rapidly? I'm sure there's some way there's some type of compensation we could work on, like a reward, probably the better word. Is that a feasible scenario?
Yeah, it's definitely a good question that you're asking. So the way that the bad debt gets cleared is you have to supply one tokens to then remove one tokens. That's the only route for this clearing of bad debt. So it wouldn't really work with pegged assets necessarily, but if the community wanted to get behind and supply or come up with a fund that is that continues to be one-to-one parity, I see nothing wrong with that.
So essentially, we'd have to create some type of liquidity. I guess in my head, this is what I'm thinking. If we created some type of liquidity with, I'm just going to use US dollar stably as an example. It doesn't have to be that, but if we created a fund with a certain amount of money. First question: what is the amount of bad debt Tranquil owes?
So if you go to the marketplace, it's the supply side. If you go to V1, right, on Tranquil Finance, I haven't checked recently, but from last time I checked, I think it was a total of about 35 million, because you have to add 6.1 million stone, or ST1, because that's included as well. But the bad debt is a quick way to look at it is the Tranquil supply side, or the one
Gotcha.
pools on the lending side. So right now it's at 33.9. So you do 33.9 plus 6. So you get 39.9. And that's in one tokens.
All right, so about 40 million in one tokens, which is about $420,000 at today's value, 450, something around
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's a lot of money for the community to come up with together. But nonetheless, an initiative to start. But if we created a pool, technically, hypothetically, I guess, if we created a pool with $450,000 and we use that pool to purchase Harmony.ONE, and then we purchased the debt with Tranquil Finance, that would get them out of the bad debt.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that's been on my mind. I've been trying to communicate with the Trank team. Maybe there's some way we could work. I don't know, with the Trank team. Maybe you could arrange that myself, and I don't want to throw Butthead out there, but we're pretty active in the community, and we want to see this recover. Maybe creating some type of conversation is worth a try, better than doing nothing, in my opinion.
Since you mentioned me, I'd like to mention Sonic Swap too. Hog's a very big supporter of Sonic Swap. I love Sonic Swap. Used them for a long time. I know we've mentioned Takara and Sushi, but so it'd be cool to have a conversation with all the active dexes together at some point too.
Your mic turned into a robot, butthead. Thanks for shedding some light on that subject. Would you like to tell everybody a little brief introduction about you, Theo? Like what your position is at Harmony and some of your background?
Sure. So I've been in the space about since 2017. Started out with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then just became a complete degen in Cardano for some reason or the other. And then that brought me to like quality staking chains. And then with Cardano, I also found Harmony. So I've been Harmony since like right in 2019, 2020 as a user. And I think that's also part of the reason why I was pulled off of the Tranquil negotiations. But my own position, that ranges from like a PM, business development, strategy. Just involves a lot of difficult conversations and kind of being between the community and core team is not always the greatest place to be. But as someone who's like a part of the community from like 2020, I don't really talk much on community things, and I have a different pseudonym, but like just the resilience of this community is incredible. And I've always said that like if Harmony is able to figure this out, like they can fly. And it's something that I try to face every day and push for, because even like post hack, post everything, like everyone sticks together, everyone still shows up. The Discord can be a bit much sometimes, but hey, that's all right. That's better than just crickets. And yeah, we continue to push. Like the way that I can reach out to certain validators or talk to people and everyone's aligned on like the best interest for Harmony is both really exciting and really rewarding, but also tough because of the certain outcomes that we have to face, or certain loopholes or things that we have to push through. One of them is shaping governance and drafting HIPs. And so certain things like an emission DAO, in the way that I see it, is kind of a way that we could potentially avoid being in Tranquil like situations in the future, is is giving that power to the community. Right now, you would have a fund that could potentially cover everything, right? And then this would be something that's completely community run. Like no one internally would be participating on this emission DAO. But I guess we don't really have too many titles at Harmony, so it's hard to pinpoint anything. My background is in computer science and philosophy, and I was going to go down the software engineering route, but had a few internships, and I was like, I don't want to sit at a computer all day like this. And instead, I sat around my computer looking at NFTs and looking at crypto and diving into the technology behind it, and then got more passionate about decentralized governance and what you can actually do with the technology. And then decided, oh, wait a minute, is there a way that I can build or at least help build in the space? And I'm native to the area, so I'm really, really close to the Harmony office. And my my interview, actually, I didn't know it was an interview. I don't know if this is if I'm just going off on a rant or if anyone wants to listen to this, but I was asked to swing by the office just to have a visit. So I was like, okay, like I just pulled up in like jeans and t-shirt and didn't think much of it. And then I get in and it's Stephen, Lee, and Casey like sitting down with my resume on this long table. I was like, oh goodness, this is happening. And it was an interesting interview. I just proceeded to share my own opinions about certain decisions and about like the 10,000 DAOs, the blue metaverse, the apes, and DeFi kingdoms, and kind of went down a list of saying that Harmony is incredible at coming up with these initiatives, like leading the pack at times, blatantly copying Ethereum at other times. But still, like if we blatantly copied Ethereum, we'd be in a better place because of fees and finality and all this stuff and whatnot. But I also mentioned that a lot of these initiatives don't get fully thought out. And that's something that I have continued to repeat almost on a daily basis, is trying to narrow our focus. I feel like 10,000 DAOs. If DAOs are something that we want to do, let's narrow it down. Let's just do DAOs. Let's not do a metaverse. Let's not do apes. Let's just do DAOs. Let's focus on that. Let's give all our attention there. Or if it is a blue metaverse, man, let's make it the best metaverse that we can. Or if it is apes, for some reason or another, we can maybe potentially make that the best for our ecosystem. But we continually do is look either for the next thing, or we don't focus enough on the current thing. And that's something that I think the community has been very vocal about. And that's something that we've noticed as well. And it's narrowing this gap, in my opinion, isn't about focusing on what to do, right? Picking DAOs or blue metaverse. It's listening to the community to see what we need to focus on. And that link is very close, but it's not being done. And Soph and I have had numerous discussions about it, like even yesterday. So we like go back and forth on best things to do and how to push this. But yeah, I don't want to just continue talking and ranting.
No, that's great. Thank you for definitely. We appreciate the presence that you guys are making and communicating, and definitely keep it up. Much appreciated. I'd like to start out with a question on the projected median stake around 12 million. which will put the lower bound at just under 8 million. Currently, out of the 125 elected validators, it would put 52 of them under the lower bounds. I know that the foundation stake is to a lot of them, and you think that, like, the validators that are still active should be able to be okay.
Yes, and in an ideal world, we can have all of the ones that are active continue. We're slowly doing a rotation of the current staking initiative, which is long overdue and has been delegating to inactive validators and validators who are unelected. And also validators who have kind of, like if you look at their main stake, it's like 99% is from Harmony, right? So there's, we're also looking at those that have made an effort of kind of building their own stakes. But regardless, just those that are completely inactive and those that are unelected frees up about 56 million ONE tokens to then be redelegated to other people. But if we also include Stake DAO in there, that would be 60 million from Stake DAO. So that's 116 million that potentially frees up, and which will go towards active validators. And the way that it would work is currently the staking initiative kind of just places delegation and then just leaves. And then with validator fellows, what we're trying to do is bridge this gap between community and internal. And it's kind of having these direct communications. I believe even like a direct communication or chats or AMAs or something with Steven directly that I needed to know more about. I just heard about that, I think yesterday. But what that would entail is every 3 months there would kind of be this reassessment period, and if people aren't as active or if they decide to stop their validator or something happens, right? Like it would be a more fluid rotation of every 3 months reassessing, okay, who's active, or if there's like, I don't know, say a list of 20, 15 of them get chosen, and then so that means that there's 5 active that aren't selected, right? We don't want to leave them dead in the water. What we want to do is have a rotation so that they can still participate. And what that would look like is probably every 3 months there would be a delegation rotation to include those people as well. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good to hear. And with the recent HIP-30 update that came out, do you think that's a finalized update, or is there any plans of another update coming out, or at this point, I should say?
At this point, I think that is the one that is finalized. There's, I believe in the KC article, there's the only discrepancy was the shard deviation, and then internal talks yesterday was that the deviation would be more of one that's difficult to process, and also one that we can fine tune to see if in actuality it has an impact, and something that we could change following HIP-30. So the current snapshot, I guess, that I can read real quick would be so this governance vote is to boost network efficiency while accelerating recovery and ecosystem growth. And then it says HIP-30 presents a full improvement to our network with the following changes. So again, this is all bundled into one. Splitting the annual token emission between staking and recovery, proportional to the number of nodes where the emission per BLS key remains constant. Reducing the number of shards from 4 to 2. Decreasing the total number of nodes from 250 to 200 for shard 1 to actively develop towards 1 second finality. Minimum validator commission raised from 5 to 10%. The mandates, members, and operating structure of the emission DAO will be put forth in an additional governance proposal by the end of the first year of allocations. So this is, so we've removed, I guess there's a slight change of just clarity of saying that the instatement of the emission DAO is removed until the first year of allocations, so that it also gives us a year to develop the emission DAO. That way people have something they can actually tangibly vote on whether they want to instate or not. So then after the first year of allocations, there would be a governance vote to establish the emission DAO. And what that means is that the first year would just include the funds going straight to recovery, and that's it.
Did you say that the validator minimum commission is going to get raised to 10%? Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
I didn't notice that in the HIP.
The funds allocated towards recovery. We had a discussion here earlier because I don't know if we're using the proper terminology, and not you guys per se, but like the community. Is the plan to completely eliminate all the depegged assets, or is there an actual plan for a repeg?
It would be, I guess, a combination of both, right? As the plan continues to clear the bad debt at the current rates, and then increase them at some point. Exactly when these would increase, I don't know. But I think as more and more bad debt is cleared, or not, sorry, not bad debt, depegged assets are cleared, then we have the potential to raise those rates. But I would say at this point it's unknown whether it will go to 100%.
The idea is that as you burn all the depeg assets, right, those assets will become rarer, and in theory they should increase in value. Okay. Right now, what's happening, from what I can see, is that lots of people or bots are still arbitraging on that, right? But at one point, the DPEG assets quantity will be so less that they won't be able to swap at the same price. Okay, so as I said, as we burn more DPEG assets, in theory, the price should be going up. Yeah.
So after the, let's just say, price goes back to 2 cents and it stays at that price for a significant amount of time, and we achieve our goal in 18 months, then what? Like what? So with the 50% emissions or that we took away from the rewards, what are we going to do with them then?
Right. So I mentioned about that in a chat or even a talk forum, right? The fund will be available, right? And it would be up to the emission DAO to decide what to do, okay? And I was giving that crazy idea, right? What if the entirety that 50% is being burnt? So if you think about it, right, there's a very good chance that we can now be deflationary, right? Now it will be up to the emission DAO to actually decide what to do, right? If you want to support ecosystem with new projects, or if you want to reduce that emission to something less, why not? Okay, we can also decide that. Put it fully back to 100% to staking. Why not? Okay, I mean everything is possible here. Okay, but the idea here is that fund will be fully available for the emission DAO to decide what to do with it.
Hi, Phoenix. Did you have a question?
Who, I guess, since we're on the emissions now, I who is running the DAO? How? I'm sorry if I'm ignorant. I don't know the answers to these questions, but emissions DAO, like, who is in charge of that?
So this would be entirely the community. So as we see it now, we could potentially open up voting for every token holder, and then token holders would vote for certain people or certain validators to be put on the emission DAO. But ideally, we would have a year to develop this. So this would be not necessarily just a multi-sig that we call a DAO, right? This would be something more extensive. And it's a way to give the power to the community, essentially allowing them to decide where to allocate those emissions, right? Like exactly like Soph said, is it burning? Is it ecosystem? Is it back to the rewards for the validators? Like this is a something that it wouldn't be placed like where we just work on it internally and we say, here's the emission DAO. You guys have to stick to this. At least I'm speaking if I'm going to lead this part of it, then it would be for a year with the community, with validators, is creating this structure that's able to sustain itself and fix certain issues that DAOs face of not necessarily making efficient decisions, members with apathy, like you can't really make decisions, so it would have to kind of have these safeguards and be essentially turning Harmony into a DAO, so to speak, where you would have a community that's passionate, funds for that community, and then a governance structure to maintain those funds and that community, and then an actual impact on the ecosystem, right? Like these discussions of like, oh, if we got together as a community and put together these funds, like it would be pretty challenging because it's still like $400,000, right? So now through the emission DAO, it allows the community to have this yearly funding that can be allocated where they please. And then they can be voted on, they can have different specialties. There can be like, if people want to do the business side, they can do different KPIs of projects. They can do partnerships as well, or they can burn, right? There is that option, and it gives, I guess, more fluidity and more power to the community, and it's something that would definitely have to have a very robust governance structure, and ideally for me, I'd want it to be completely community run, but also completely community sustainable. So this would be something that as soon as it's instilled, the community is able to make those decisions and have those discussions. And if people want to make changes to the allocations, say be like, oh, like let's put 60% to Tranquil, for example, right? Or something like that. And then it's like, oh, we have 40%. Okay, let's give 30% back to the validators because with Tranquil we're happy. So now it's the validators are now making a total of 75% rather than the or not, it wouldn't be 75%. But anyway, they would be making more than the current split. And it's like, okay, we have 10%, 10% left over. Let's burn it, right? And then now we have a position where we can burn something that's more than the gas fees that were being burned before, because those were of created one tokens, whereas this one would be directly burning those that are emitted.
Hey Ed, thanks for joining us. Do you have a question or anything?
Hey everybody. Yeah, I think one of the things I just wanted to touch on was the question or comment about let's say we get everything cleared up. What do we do with the admission rate and how much we're actually giving to validators? At the 441 million that if we're at right now, basically, there's a pretty high success threshold around how much utility, how many people have to be on the network to make it viable for the token's price to give away that many tokens a year. And so it seems to me like, kind of going with what Theo's saying, that if there was such a directive of like, let's say we get to ground zero again, there'd still need to be some level of reduced emissions to balance things out and make things actually sustainable. But ideally, it would be amazing if there was some like level of ownership from the community in that DAO format. But I think there's a lot of lack of faith in that direction as far as getting the community to actually own what's left of the network. And so is there a sense, I guess the question I would just sort of move forward with, I actually was going to just comment on like his question was just, we might actually still need to reduce the number of validators and the number of rewards. But Theo and Soph, do you guys feel like there's a room for faith that people should have that the network's going to be DAO controlled in any fashion? Like, are we going to see more like actual decentralizing authority?
To me, I don't see why not. I guess with a multi-sig that comprise only of community members, I guess that's possible. And that's where we are trying to head in terms of implementation. So once the multi-sigs and signatories are all decided, really that emission DAO in charge of that fund and that those one token that are on that wallet, right? You guys will be the one to decide, okay? But as Theo mentioned, there will be like in a 1 year time, because we don't expect during that first year we implement that reduced emission, right? They will be going towards recovery, okay? And may last for 18 months or even longer if the price of one doesn't even go up, right? But once it's fully recovered, at that point, we hope that the emission DAO and the other community members in that multisig is already been defined, and all the in that emission DAO can decide on what they want to do next. So to me, it seems very plausible. I'm not sure why you think that it's not possible to happen. I mean, to me, is clearly possible. Now, whether it can run smoothly, that I can't say. Right, that will really depends on how the emission DAO is being built with all the guardrails and everything. Right, but at least for the setup of the multisig with the community members in, that should be something that we can do without major problem.
Yeah, definitely. Technically, it should be possible. I was more thinking about the leadership just like allowing for the over community control. That was more the concern or the doubt. It wasn't about like if it can be done. Definitely can be done. But just that there's some feeling of like doubt around the leadership giving the reins to the community in that way. It seems that feels like a realistic goal for at least for this initiative to you.
Yeah, I think I can also speak on what Soph was saying, that I mean, I feel like just the mentioning of DAO at Harmony is triggering. And yeah, and the thought of like the overlooming like internal control, like I completely understand where you're coming from. Like there's no I guess previous thing to go off of to say like, oh, okay, like this will be completely community run, like and we'll be able to control like all of these emissions. Like this is something that will help us all, like I guess regain some I guess of a voice in the community, but not necessarily a voice, but tying emissions to that voice, and have an actual impact. The way I would structure it would be that, and this is something I mentioned earlier, like, oh, from the get-go, like this is going to be the company's going to be included, but like, I mean, those are just words. What I want that to look like is currently it's more internal battles that are being fought, and what I would do is kind of bring the community in directly. So it would be the community validators, anybody who wants to participate is directly involved in the creation of this emission DAO. And by that year, what we'll see is like, okay, like, is this like effectively in community control, right? And that's, I mean, it might not be easy. Like I'm seeing a little bit of the worries that you're mentioning of having some pushback and everything, but I think the community has a very strong voice, and it's something that I'd like to open the doors to have that voice be spoken internally, so that can be a large group of people, and each day, rather than internally working on it and having discussions, and me being like kind of this relay of community sentiment. Same with Soph. Like if it's just us two, like we definitely can't make like the the voice of the community any justice. So for this governance, like if we're having an emission DAO that's completely community run, to me it makes absolutely no sense that it would be internally defined. So for that, I would want it to be as community defined as possible, and people are happy with the way that it's run, so that once it comes to the vote of its establishment, there's no questions, right? Like it's like, okay, we know exactly how it's going to run. We already have ideas of how we want to allocate those funds. We have an idea of who we want to be in charge of it. We have an idea of how we want the checks and balances to work to make sure that it's self-sustaining. And we're happy that the community has the full say, and there's no potential of like internal influence, so to speak.
And does that feel like feasible? It feels like from the outside looking in, there's been like a handful of protocol team members like yourselves, which I greatly appreciate to the ends. Polymorphic is also in the battlegrounds, representing like decentralization and like the ideals, but it does seem like there's been a huge pushback from the rest of the core around not expecting that if there was some sort of organization that they shouldn't be kind of wedged in there somewhere. I think the thought of how the recovery effort went in that regard of having like an inside man just sort of in having some level of sway and governance in the is that not is that something we should? It seems like that's going to be a continued fight. Is that not the case? Like we're still fighting for like decentralization as an ethos in as far as the core protocol uh, team is concerned. Is that in some ways based on like fear, or is that just a difference of opinion, or I'm even misunderstanding? Is that because I feel pretty confident that a lot of people have that opinion. I mean, based on the attitudes that I'm encountering.
I think you brought up a great example of recovery in kind of this, like I guess, placebo decentralized approach of saying, oh, we have ecosystem partners, right? And this specifically the emission DAO, yeah, would be different. It would be as if it was the community behind those partners that then allocate the funds, right? Like it wouldn't be internal, then partners, then allocation of funds. So this is something that rather than having no say, right, the community has no say on internal discussions in this matter. Like there are community comms, I guess, that people say, okay, like can we change this about R1? What about Tranquil? What about these funds to Modulo? Let's get the pre-hack wallets, make them be able to recover first, right? There are these kind of steps that happen, but something that we're realizing internally is that one, those needs aren't always met, and two, if they are met, it's not done in a timely manner. So this would be something that allows that to happen more directly, because then now it would be the community themselves who has the power to allocate the way that they see, and that's something that now, rather than having the community as this kind of voice in the not either, but like voice in comparison to the internal team that makes the decision. Now its internal team is the ones that have voices, but ultimately the community is the one that makes the decision. And I think for the emission DAO to be successful, that's the only way that it can happen.
Thank you, Theo.
saw Casey there for a second. I invited him to speak, but I think he's probably having problems. So, I know, Soph, you have a meeting to attend, don't you?
Casey and myself are supposed to attend that meeting. And just let Max know that currently we are still in a Twitter space. So if you have last minute questions, I think we can still take those on. Yeah.
Since if we're just kind of opening to questions around the HIP-30, is 1 second finality about HIP-30? Is that been separated to some other aspect?
It's still included.
Is that going to increase server costs as far as just having twice as many blocks regularly?
I don't expect to have, so there will be the expectation to have more storage being used, okay? But for a validator nodes, I don't expect that to be that much, and you can still have a snapdb to reduce that anyway. But on the RPC side, I believe there will be an increase in cost. Yeah.
As of right now, is HIP-30 scheduled to go up to vote at a certain point? Or?
We had some internal discussion, and we want to put that snapshot vote soon. Yeah.
I just want to bring up thank you for everybody for showing up. I see a lot of validators out there. That's good to see. This is an open space. Anybody that wants to request a mic is free to do so. Just want to put that out there. So if anybody has any questions or anything, just request the mic. We can get you up here.
Is there still a plan as far as so if we are going to 1 second finality, would that complicate eventually being able to have external leader nodes? Because it seems like that was a problem in the past as far as switching to less centralized leader nodes, where the amount of time it takes to actually sync them up was needing to be more than 2 seconds. Is there a reason 1 second finality is being kind of pushed through?
To me, the 1 second finality is for us to prove our technology advancement, that we can achieve that 1 second, which to me, we should be able to do. SHA-123 with no transaction today can already do 1 second finality, but our code base is actually posing that and force the node to be 2 seconds. Okay. We just had to relook at the SHA-0. Okay. And reducing the numbers of keys is one way to also reduce the timer. Yeah.
So if we do have a successful, I don't know what the term for the token allocation of foundation funds to keeping validators that are engaged on the network, is there still an expectation that we should lose and kind of need to lose some number of validators, correct? Like that's sort of a part of this whole like drive for the HIP-30 is we need to cut costs and we need to increase the revenue for the remaining validators. Is there like a hard number that we're expecting to say, like, this is how many validators we should be able to have on the network?
Okay, we don't have that number today, if you ask me. And I don't know what would be a good number, to be honest, right now. Okay. But to me, if we do things well, the numbers of validators that we are going to lose won't be that much, if you ask me. Okay, it will all depends on the big stakers, the big validators, and how they manage their keys. Okay, and if they actually do things not to use too many key slots, I believe we should be able to keep everyone in. Okay, now I can't predict what everyone would do, right? And there was some other ideas to have only one BLS keys per validators and all those stuff, if we do so, definitely everyone will be in, right? But I don't have yet. We haven't decided yet that we will go with only one BLS keys, okay? But even if we with the current EPOS system, if the big validators would be to reduce the numbers of keys they use in the network, right? I think that there should be ways, to have everyone in.
I mean, we have some of these big validators on the chat. I don't know if they would be willing to come up and talk, but it seems like that's not likely to happen, right? They're not like the biggest validators we have are pretty profit driven, to be respectful, right? I mean, it's been a problem in the past too. Like we just have some big validators, and they have a large bag, and it seems like that's one mission we can't really do much about. Like, we can decentralize, we can talk about having shared ownership, but getting people to kind of step back from their profits to keep people alive has never really been a viable pathway, right?
Hey, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Let me touch on that real quick. I thought Soph was going to answer. Yeah, I think that there's certainly the approach of like the best interests of, I don't know, the pursuit of like of a bag, right? Like you want to do what's most profitable, and also the best interest of, I guess, longevity of the chain, and then of seeing like the short term losses and rewards for the longer term influence of the chain itself, in the sense of having a direct impact on token appreciation. But that's something that's very, very difficult, and I would say impossible to calculate, and to expect validators to agree on in the current state of something that's like, we have no idea what the emission DAO will look like, right? Like I have a clear idea in my head of like the most optimal way that it would be, and I hope it could reach something like that. But I'm sure Soph and everyone else might have a different one. And the goal of that first year is to figure out which way is best and kind of pull from everybody's ideas. Um, as for the number of validators, yes, like there definitely will be a reduction, like inherent to the optimization of the chain. And this ideally will be a reduction of the inactive ones. And with the support of the validator fellows of this like initiative that includes treasury funds that can help validators. So this could be any range of like, currently we delegate to, I think it's like 71 validators, but I think this would probably be a little bit more optimized. So if people were to reduce their keys to be most optimized in the new scenario, like there's two calculations that I did. One was proportional, and this was in the recent post on the forum. That had to do with the 52 to 23 max key reduction, right? And that gives us, I think it was 71 or 72 validators that meet this this requirement of the lower bound. But again, if we do take it as the validators that say, I guess, maximize their keys and use similar trends to what they did, the quick calculation of that was down to about 21 validators. But then now, if it is that we are delegating to 71 people, then we get up to about 90 validators. So it's something that for each key, like even currently, right? Like a large validator will separate their keys to a certain amount, but then smaller validators will be able to, I guess, one up like the smallest key of a larger validator, and that's how we're able to have more decentralization now. And I think that the same, like I guess, game theory aspect would continue on in the new like post HIP-30.
Hey, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, thank you, guys. My question is to Theo and to Sophia. And guys, I joined a little bit later, so probably you answered this question. But from what I just heard from Theo, so my question is very, very simple. Why you don't reconsider again with updated HIP-30, not to go with the multiple layers key approach, but to use one layers key? Because for now, what I see is that effective mechanism of consensus EPOS, yes, it is not so effective as it was claimed previously, and with the system of going the way multiple layers keep validator, even if we reduce it from 52 to 24, it will not resolve the problem of EPOS. And let's say just like if going with one belief keeper validator approach, effective pulse also will take will play a very good role for the fairness for the redistribution of the stake. Because huge validators this way, they will definitely be more higher than upper bound, and this way people will be forced to redelegate their stake to other validators. And this is also a case for the small validators to participate with even a small stake, which will be less than just necessary median or necessary lower bound. So why did you not, I mean, just like not you personally, but I mean the team, why team don't consider to have one AS key and use a POS in this case? And why you still force us to go with a multiple AS key approach with such a significant change for the whole consensus? Thank you.
Nick, I think we can discuss that. Okay. I just want to see all the impacts and consequences of doing so, and how do you decide which key goes to which shard and all those stuff, those operational stuff, or maybe we can go with just with one BLS key per shard. I don't know. Okay, that might be a good solution as well. So if you have two shards, and the maximum BLS key that a validator could have would be 2. Okay, and they would have to run 2 different nodes, one in shard 0 and one in shard 1. Okay, but I'm not going to say that we haven't think about it. Okay, there was community members, validators who mentioned about that, so we think about that, thought about that, but we could implement that. I mean, I keep saying, right? The protocol is just code, right? And at the end, whatever logic and whatever we can think of could be implemented. Okay, it's just a matter of how or what is the impact of the operational side of it. Okay, and how complicated would be the code base later on. Okay, because usually in order to support the code base, you want a simple code as well. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I can touch base with the team internally on that idea, but I can't promise it would be part of HIP-30. Okay, but yeah.
There's
I don't have.
also
Yeah, go ahead, Theo.
Okay, okay,
that
okay.
was like.
Sorry, let me
Go
go
ahead,
ahead
Nick.
just a second. Just like, okay. So, thanks for your clarification. From what I see right now, there is a bottleneck of technical implementation, like you said. Yeah, but I do understand that. Yeah, I do understand that everything is it's about the code and how you can change it. Yeah, for sure. But my question is just like, yes, when you was reviewing these two approaches, like multiple AS key and let's say just like one AS key per node, which means 2 keys for the validator in general for 2 shards. Why did you why did you decide to prefer multiple AS keys instead of one AS key per node per shard? This is the question, because we raised this question just like with the first iteration of HIP-30, and then Theo posted an updated proposal, and updated proposal also included multiple AS key approach, and no explanation for why multiple AS key is preferable for the team. Because
So Nick,
if the answer
let
is
me.
just like because of the code and the technical
No.
implementation,
So
then okay. But I think maybe the risk could be in another point of view. Thank you.
no, so Nick, let me understand as well, because I know at one point we were saying to have only one BLS key per node, right? Which is completely different from a one BLS key per validator, because the one BLS key per node is just a client side. Okay, when I say client, I'm referring to the Harmony binary. So I think I made that comment at one point, is that if you were to go with one BLS key per node, anyone else could look at the Harmony code base, refine the multi-BLS key, and build their own versions of the Harmony binary to have multi-BLS key. Okay. What I was referring to is to have one BLS key per validator, or eventually per validator and per shard. Okay. Which, as I said, I may have read it, but I think I need to put some more thought into it to understand all the complexities I was mentioning before. Okay, and that's why we remove that. And that's why we remove that multi BLS key versus one BLS key per node, because at the end, anyone can just look at the harmonic code base and re-implement back the multi BLS key for their own use.
Okay, so
There
thanks
is
for
also
clarification. Thank you.
there is also the question of, I mean, isn't like the BLS key is actually, you know, a part of the consensus mechanism that is tied to the amount of 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 nodes or cores on the node. So it actually is using, you know, most nodes have multiple cores, and so the idea of having just one BLS key is not actually as effective for the consensus, isn't it? Like we get more actual validation of the network with having a few BLS keys on one node. Is that not? Am I misunderstanding that, Soph?
So the idea was that running with one BLS key should improve the performance. Okay, but to me, the CPU and memory and storage, or at least CPU and memory, right? Today, even for the big validators, right, is not that big of a hurdle. Okay, but the original idea of using one BLS key, it was also that what you just mentioned is to improve the performance. Okay, but the other advantage of having that was also to have redundancy of the node, because today if multi-BLS key node is going down and you run, for instance, 5 keys, those 5 keys are offline, right? But if you were to run 5 different nodes for those 5 keys, bringing down those 5 nodes at the same time is a little bit more difficult if you were to use different service provider, right? So, but yeah, that was those advantages that we had previously, you know.
Are there any more validators that would like to come up, or anybody that would like to come up with any questions or anything or comments?
Was there an understanding of what happened as far as Casey's availability? If we'll have an opportunity to talk to him, or if that's just not, did something happen?
Well, it's very early in the morning for him. I don't know if Soph or Theo know more, but I'm guessing he probably slept through his alarm and he had a developers meeting to go to, so.
Right. I'm not sure what happened. Okay. But he briefly joined that Twitter space, but that was at the time where we had the protocol meeting, right? And there's a time where I was telling you guys that told Max that I will stay here for now. Okay. So to wrap up everything that you may want to ask him. Do you have any questions that you wanted to ask Casey that I can try to answer maybe?
Yeah, I think there's some question around why 1 second finality is being pushed forward. I'm not sure where that directive is coming from. There's also, I think there's a kind of negative perception about not showing up. There is a feeling of wanting more core involvement, and yeah, I can appreciate him being busy, but it's early here too. But I think as well as just the 1 second finality question, I think I don't think it's good that he came and left. I think it's a bad look. I don't know if that's worth mentioning to him, but there's a lot of dedicated people trying to make the community come together. So yeah.
Yeah, understand. Let me talk to him because I can't say what happened with his schedule this morning. Whether he didn't hear his alarm or what, I can't say, right? Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't have the answer for you on that one.
Well, I really appreciate everybody showing up. Soph, Theo, and everybody else. Anybody has any questions, now would be the time. If not, then I don't want to tie up everybody's day. But speak now or forever hold your peace.
I just want to say thank you to Soph and for Theo. Thank you for this call and for all of the work that you're doing. So much to actually, represent what so much of the people here are interested in and what brought them to Harmony. And you guys are exemplary members of the community. And yeah, I'm sure you deal with a lot of bull crap, I'll say, and just wanted to say thank you for going above and beyond.
I'd also like to say thanks for everybody for coming. Thanks for your time. We can organize. I don't know if this is a good time for everybody or not. It seemed like we had good involvement last time, and this one seems like a success too. I just wanted to thank everybody moving forward, and I look forward to more communication in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Have a good night.
Oh, hey, Clay. I just gave you the mic. Did you have something you want to say? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening the entire time, just kind of lurking, but I wanted to ask, like, it feels like there hasn't been, I mean, beyond like what has been posted as far as HIPs go, what is the Harmony team doing to build back trust besides like trying to come up with methods for repegging and maybe moving past depegged assets? Like, what is the Harmony team doing specifically to regain the trust of the community? Because it feels like at this point, the community has been very vocal about the things that they want to see. And the Harmony team has just taken it upon themselves to say, yeah, we're not really doing that. We're going to do our own thing. So what is the goals, I guess, to regain that community trust that's been lost?
I think that's a great question, and the one that if we fully get to an answer, I think that results in the direct success of Harmony. That might be my own personal opinion, but I think you're touching exactly on where we've kind of dropped the ball on, whether that's like continuously dropping the ball or not, right? I think the direct way is further empowering the community in a sense of, hey, like, we trust you guys. We want to give you the full allocation of these emissions with full control, right? whether that looks down the line of including, hey, you know what, like this year, like we have no DeFi. Maybe let's the community can decide to allocate funds to DeFi, and then the trust in the sense is it's not so much how will the community trust Harmony, right? I think the response, at least from my perspective, is how do we get Harmony to trust the community, right? Like I think the issue isn't necessarily with the community. I think the issue is internally. And if we're able to empower the community and see like just how much like benefit it is to empower it, right, and give it direct decisions, like I was mentioning earlier, of actually allowing the voice of the community to have a direct impact rather than just limiting it to being a voice. I think that's step one. And then step two internally is continuing these DeFi primitives. I think when you have a chain that has nothing, like what's the point of having a technically superior chain if you can't do anything with it? I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but that's just my own perspective on like what an ecosystem should have. Like you need to have at the very minimum primitives. I mean, that's why they're called primitives in the first place. And currently Harmony has none of them, right? Like there is Tranquil to a very limited capacity, right? So the first, step two, I guess, would be delivering these primitives, right? Allowing a use case for Harmony, right? And whether that's with ecosystem partners internally or community, right? It's continuing to push these so that there's something that people can actually do and use Harmony, right? Like a lot of people came in through DeFi Kingdoms, right? They didn't really necessarily come in because of the cheap fees and the fast finality, right? Like it's building on top of that makes Harmony so successful. And then you can spread across, and you have like people going to Mars Colony, people minting different avatars. You have knights and peasants. Like you have different things that people can do on the chain. And I think those on top of the community is the next thing that gives a chain its value, right? Because at the base layer, you have the community, you have people that are interacting with the chain, you have people that are sharing the chain, you have people that are validating the chain, right? These are the people that kind of are the base layer, right? The foundation. And then on top of that, you have use cases, right? So first, I would say, how do we rebuild trust? It's internal trusting the community, right? Empowering the community to make those decisions and removing ourselves from certain decisions. Because we have shown that in the past, certain decisions that we've made aren't the best ones, right? And that's the number one thing that I think that we need to change and kind of either narrow down that focus or further empower the community to be the ones who not necessarily have the burden, but have the opportunity to make those decisions for themselves. And then step two is to continue working on these initiatives.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I also want to second what Ed said, though. Like, having this discussion and Casey not show up is a really, really terrible look as far as trust goes with the community. So that was definitely not appealing.
Yeah, this is something that Soph and I have noted, and we'll share it. We'll make sure to share it internally as well.
Well, thank you very much, Soph and Theo, Ed, Patrick, Nick, Affirmation, Crypto Clay, and Butthead, and everybody else that showed up today. Much appreciated. We've got a lot of good discussion, and definitely keep doing what you guys are doing, Soph and Theo. We definitely appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us and helping out.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
My name's Rob, aka Peace, Love, Harmony. I hope everybody has a great day, evening. Have a good one, everybody.